Good afternoon, and welcome to the National Press Club. My name is Alan Bierga. I'm a reporter for Bloomberg News and president of the National Press Club. We're the world's leading professional organization for journalists and are committed to our profession's future through our programming and by fostering a free press worldwide. For more information about the National Press Club, please visit our website at www.press.org. To donate to our programs, please visit www.press.org/library. On behalf of our members worldwide, I'd like to welcome our speaker and our attendees at today's event, which includes guests of our speaker as well as working journalists. I'd also like to welcome our C-SPAN and public radio audiences. After the speech concludes, I will ask as many audience questions as time permits. I'd now like to introduce our head table guests. From your right, Michelle Hirsch, reporter for the Fiscal Times. Sitki Ozkan, policy director of the Rumi Forum. Marilyn G. Wax, senior business editor for National Public Radio. She did her master's thesis on Coca-Cola. Bob Keefe of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. He's a Washington correspondent. Joel Whitaker of Kane's Beverage News Daily. He's the chairman of the National Press Club's membership committee. Susan Neely, CEO of the American Beverage Association and a guest of the speaker. Andrew Schneider, associate editor for Kiplinger and the chair of the National Press Club Speakers Committee. Skipping over our speaker for the moment, Angela Greiling-Keene, the Speakers Committee member who organized the luncheon and a reporter at Bloomberg News. Donald McHenry, Georgetown University professor, Coca-Cola board member, and a guest of the speaker. Carol Wolf, reporter, Bloomberg News. And AP radio anchor Ed Donahue. In politics, name recognition is half the battle. In retail, having a household name for a well-established brand is a blessing but also a curse when growing a mature market. A pause in growth is not refreshing to shareholders. But that challenge of furthering growth is one Coca-Cola chairman and CEO Muhtar Kent says he is ready to meet. Mr. Kent leads the world's biggest soft drink maker, which is working to grow in the U.S. and in emerging markets such as China, where it is busy investing $2 billion and where it opened its 41st bottling plant in October. Coke is also growing in Africa, where per capita Coca-Cola consumption lags more developed regions. The company isn't exactly entering a new market, though. It's been in Africa since 1929 and already is the continent's largest employer. Today, he's here to talk about how business and government in North America can together rekindle economic growth and innovation. The U.S. still struggles with high unemployment amid an economic downturn, and the U.S. soda, I call it pop, market, has declined for 5 consecutive years as schools and the White House have focused on combating obesity, especially in children. Mr. Kent has gained fame for his all-hour schedule and meetings with world leaders during his travels. He joined Coca-Cola in 1978 and has worked for the company or its bottlers ever since, becoming CEO in 2008. This week, he's been attending UN-led talks on setting rules to limit global warming. Mr. Kent says he favors a series of international accords rather than an international treaty. So please welcome to the National Press Club, Coca-Cola Chairman and CEO Muhtar Kent.
Thank you, Alan, and good afternoon, everyone. What a great privilege it is to be in our nation's capital today to address the National Press Club. But I can't help but notice that a lot of folks here are enjoying our beverages at lunch today, and so just let me begin by thanking you for your business. And President Obama, if you're listening by chance on public radio or watching live on C-SPAN, I know from press reports that many of the non-alcoholic beverages of choice in the White House are produced by us. That's a policy position I certainly endorse and I appreciate. I've been looking forward to this engagement at the Press Club for some time. As someone who has spent his vast majority of career traveling to all sorts of countries, markets around the world, for Coca-Cola, I have seen firsthand the correlation between the strength of a nation and the strength of its press. That's no more so true than right here in America. In fact, one can say that I owe my career to a strong American press. About 32 years ago, I was reading a newspaper in New York when I stumbled upon a classified ad for an entry-level marketing position with the Coca-Cola company. It looked intriguing. I responded, sent them my resume. I'm glad I did. When I first went to Atlanta to start work for Coca-Cola in '78, the mood in America was, I can certainly remember, was pretty somber. A lot of anxious people at that time. Fuel prices were spiking. Interest rates were pretty much at all-time highs. A recession was draining the confidence of the country at that time. There was widespread fear that I could recall that the U.S. was losing its global political and economic leadership at that time. Many people feared that a surging Japan would take away all the jobs here in the United States in American industry, in the U.S. economy. Even greater numbers of people actually at that time, I recall, were worried about their jobs being replaced by technology at that time, in '78. It's pretty fascinating because there's some pretty striking parallels between that time and actually the last couple of years, the situation that we find ourselves in. When you look back at '78 and what happened, the United States did not collapse. In fact, America, the United States, got stronger, much, much stronger, and that's because this great nation fundamentally did what it always has been able to do at that time. It re-innovated itself, it reinvented itself time over. And we can learn actually from history that the past is indeed prologue. In the process of innovating, reinventing, re-innovating, and creating a technology at that time, after that, the next 15, 20, 30 years, service-driven economy, America, the United States, replaced 40 million antiquated jobs with 80 million high-paying, high-skilled jobs between 1980 and 2003. In those two and a half decades, we witnessed a unique creation here of wealth, of ideas, all because of the innovation, all because of policies, the right policies, tax policies, other policies that promoted growth led by investment. All because of the entrepreneurial spirit, all because of the vitality of a nation that actually cultivates diverse cultures, cultivates diverse people, and cultivates diverse points of view. And I believe that it's actually the same formula, the same antidote, the same medicine that ultimately is going to solve our current issues. For the record, I should say that I am an unabashed optimist, and I work for an optimistic company. We learned that trait from where? From America. For the past 124 years, Coca-Cola has grown up right beside the United States of America. We have reinvented, renewed ourselves countless times, just like this great nation. Now, I realize that being an optimistic baby boomer is not exactly in vogue at the moment. In fact, USA Today published a report a couple of weeks ago that cited that 2/3 of baby boomers were less optimistic about the future of the U.S. than they were when they turned 21. 65%. And I certainly, it's not difficult to understand, appreciate the anxiety and frustration that exists out there. The past 2 years of severe economic plight have been tough, pretty brutally tough. Families have suffered. Communities have suffered. Many, many jobs have been lost, and a lot of wealth has vanished. And I also believe that, at the same time, I also believe that our darkest days have passed. We're beginning to see some rays of light through that dark, long tunnel. And if we muscle through, I believe that we're not only going to see a return to pre-2008 economic conditions, but we're also going to witness potentially unprecedented levels of growth and prosperity, I believe, in the years to come. On the same day that I assumed the role of CEO, 2.5 years ago, for the Coca-Cola Company in 2008, summer, July 1, in fact, I asked Mr. Warren Buffett to come and talk to our employees with me in a town hall about the economic crisis, about the mood in America, what it could mean for our business, what it could mean for our employees. And as many of you here would know, that Mr. Warren Buffett is the largest shareholder on record for the Coca-Cola Company. He owns more Coca-Cola stock than anyone else in the world. And at that town hall on July 1, 2008, he said something that I will never forget to our people during a discussion. He and I just sat on the stage and we talked and then took questions. Let me quote what he said. He said, quote, "Since the dawn of this nation," he said, "there have been those who have bet against America. There are people today betting against America, and you can be sure that there will be people 20 years from now betting against America. But here is the reality," he said. "People betting against America are always wrong. We have the culture here, the institutions here, the people here, and the ideas and innovations here that will always bloom if given the opportunity and chance," unquote. I don't know about you folks, but I'm not about to argue with Warren Buffett. At Coca-Cola, the United States that we see beyond the horizon, just beyond the horizon, is, we believe, is one of incredible opportunity. Here are the reasons. Number one, we are growing as a nation. Over the next 35 years, the U.S. is likely to add another 85 million people, new residents, to its population. The fertility rates are the highest in the developed world. Not the world, but the developed nations. Japan, Australia, Canada, Western Europe, the highest. And are higher than also some other nations that you wouldn't think. The birth rate in the United States since the creation of the two countries has passed that of Mexico for the first time. The second reason, we're a young society. It's connected, demographics. By 2050, less than a generation, only a quarter, 25% of our population will be over 60, compared with 31% for China, compared with 45% for Japan, and even higher percentages in some European nations. Again, just 10 years from now, 2020, which is the period of what we call our 2020 vision, the United States will have the third highest teen population in the world, 31 million teens, behind India, number one, and behind China, number two. Third reason, we are multicultural. Look at me. I was born here of Turkish parents, and look at where I am. It wouldn't be possible in Europe, Western Europe. We're multicultural. The U.S. remains the world's top destination for immigrants. In fact, today, according to Demographic expert Joel Kotkin, half of all skilled immigrants come to the United States. 45 million Americans today were born outside of America. That's more than the whole population of Spain. These newly minted Americans have launched nearly 25% of all venture-backed public companies since 1995. The fourth reason is we're an enterprising nation. 2 out of 3 new jobs in this country are created by businesses less than 5 years old. Women entrepreneurs, just think of this, women entrepreneurs alone account for $4 trillion in GDP in this country. That is nearly the entire GDP of China. In fact, recently somewhere else I said that the 21st century is not going to be the century of the BRICS or of Indonesia. It's going to be known as the century of women. The fifth reason is we're innovative. The U.S. produces more patents, more IPR, more inventions than the rest of the world combined. That's why one of the single biggest issues between the bilateral relationship between China and the United States is IPR protection. That is probably number 1 on the agenda of the JCCT talks next week here in Washington between the Vice Premier of China, who's going to come here for JCCT discussions, and his U.S. counterparts. The sixth reason, and equally important, is that we are a generous nation. Today, Americans give over $300 billion a year to charitable good causes. That would be a top 20 worldwide economy, $300 billion. The American ethic of service, the American ethic of philanthropy is alive despite the economic conditions we're in, and is well. There is this is the moral foundation of a growing and healthy society, being generous. So 2 years ago, we looked long and hard at these trends and others that would be shaping America and the global landscape over the next decade and beyond. We began at Coca-Cola a serious process of strategic renewal 2 years ago across our entire system, our system being us and our bottling partners around the world. 300 of those bottling partners around the world that, in most cases, own the production, the 1,100 or so bottling facilities around the world, and our logistics system around the world. And that system around the world is the 4th largest private employer, 700,000 plus employees. You might know that the relations between our company and our independent bottlers have not always been rosy. There have been times when, quite frankly, I've said it openly, we had lost our way. In many cases, individual interests were put above the greater good of our system, the greater good of our brands. Both parties shared the blame, but the business suffered. Now, however, we are totally aligned, and we're sharing the same vision. 2 years ago, we brought all the leadership teams of those bottling partners around the world together with our leadership team, sat down and began crafting a vision for 2020. And it's based on a set of mutual priorities and actions that are going to enable us to double our business in this decade that we're in. It's an aggressive vision, certainly not for the faint of heart. In essence, we're asking ourselves to accomplish in the next 10 years what it took us 124 years, in simple terms. It's going to require hard work, but we believe that it's doable. And if we continue to put aside our differences, focus on what we do best, execute day in and day out, it can be achieved. Our business in the United States, right here, is central to our achieving our 2020 vision. We cannot achieve, actually, our global targets without a strong and without a sustainable business here in the United States. And we certainly can't do it without a healthy, vibrant economy in the United States in the coming years. Fortunately, we are bullish on the future of our business in this country. In fact, we're so bullish that this year we made a $12 billion investment in restructuring all our operations here in North America by acquiring the American operations of our largest bottler, Coca-Cola Enterprises, and in the same transaction also selling some of our operations to Coca-Cola Enterprises in Europe. This new structure is helping us to better serve, more efficiently serve, more flexibly serve, more quickly serve our retail customers and consumers here in the U.S. and accelerate our business. It's foundational to our 2020 vision. We have a long way to go to get our American business back to what I call best practice as we envision it. Back in the 1980s, late 80s, mid-90s, when I used to run East and Central European operations, 23 countries that were emerging behind the Iron Curtain, the Berlin Wall, I used to recruit new bottlers, bottling partners for Coca-Cola who were going to build our infrastructure in East and Central Europe. Even before the wall came down, we started that process because we believed that the wall was coming down. And I used to bring all those partners to the United States to see how best practice could be implemented. In the last 15 years, our business leaders from the United States were going to Poland, the Czech Republic, Hungary, Romania to see best practice. Now we know we can get United States back to best practice so everyone around the world can come and see and be proud of the flagship market. We know it can be done. And in fact, these two past quarters, we've grown our business here in North America for the first time in 5 years. Indeed, there's, we believe, light at the end of the tunnel. Even before all the restructuring took shape, we have grown in the last 2 quarters, in quarter 2 and quarter 3 of the year. Now, I don't pretend even to be an economist nor a politician, but I believe that if we as a nation recommit to improving 4 critical areas of national advantage, I don't believe there's any way anyone can stop this great country progressing in the years ahead. These 4 are innovation, firstly, education, second, entrepreneurship, third, and last but not least, international trade. These 4 critical areas have made the United States the greatest economic power the world has ever known. In just the next few minutes left, I'd like to just share a quick thought on each of those 4 areas. In the foyer outside this ballroom, some of you saw a new freestyle Coca-Cola machine that dispenser that dispensed Coca-Cola. We call it Freestyle. It's a new innovation. It's actually a blending of science, art, entertainment, as well as design. It includes RFID technology, microdosing technology from the medical industry, a pure pour technology, and a Microsoft operating system, and other wonderful U.S. inventions. We call it, as I said, the Freestyle fountain machine, and it's capable of dispensing thousands, not hundreds, thousands of different combinations of Coca-Cola beverages from one single dispenser. Before that, at most, you'd get 8 or 10. If you want an orange Coca-Cola or a raspberry Fanta, or with a twist of lemon, or a Diet Barks, or 103 other branded beverages with different versions, you got it with one single simple touch. Just the same kind of screen as an iPad. Freestyle also allows our wonderful, inquisitive, curious consumers to experiment. Choice is the key. In fact, already some inventive consumers have come up with their own favorite recipes. Our journalists here in the room, for instance, might want to try a Red Wolf Blitzer, a combination of Volt, which is an energy drink, Red Blitz, and vanilla Diet Coke. That's what that is, a Red Wolf Blitzer. And for our medical professionals that may be here today, we have the Doogie Fanta MD, a combination of Mr. Pibb, Volt Peach, and Cherry Fanta. We were actually very, very fortunate to have a great, great American inventor and entrepreneur, innovator, Dean Kamen, the man who gave us the first insulin pump in the United States, in the world, amongst many, many other things, involved with us on the development of this breakthrough technology, together with the great Italian designer Pininfarina, who designs Ferraris and Maseratis and other technology, and other wonderful vehicles and planes and so forth. Dean is a fascinating man, and his imprint, personal imprint, is all over that innovation. Here in Washington, D.C. area, those freestyle fountains are being tested by a number of our customers, and we're presently in 13 markets nationally in commercial tests, and we plan to expand across the country. Someone, before I came, when we were talking in the foyer, asked me where we're going to be able to find these, and I said, you will soon be able to find them when the Atlantic Ocean finishes and land begins, all the way to where the Pacific Ocean starts. We believe it's going to be a game changer. It gives consumers more choice, as I said. It gives us real-time data about consumer preferences, and it has many environmentally friendly features. In fact, this new innovation takes 30%, one-third, of the water and of the packaging associated with our fountain business out of the system altogether. When fully deployed, Freestyle is going to present a very significant advantage for our business. A great American invention, made in America, for America, and for the world. In the coming years, I believe the greatest opportunities for American innovation will lie at a similar intersection of supply chain and of sustainability. The opportunities, I truly believe, are huge. The second area of the four that I mentioned we need to be focused on nationally is really education. While we have a higher education system that is still largely the envy of the world, last night at the U.S.-China Business Council Gala Dinner, I'm currently the chairman of the U.S.-China Business Council, the Chinese ambassador was talking about the number of Chinese students studying at U.S. educational institutions. Huge number. Astounding number. Envy of the world. We still need to think more creatively about new solutions for not as much about the higher education, but about the primary education system in this country. Let me just say I applaud, make that actually applaud loudly. I applaud loudly Mayor Bloomberg's recent choice of Hearst Magazine's Kathy Black to head New York City's public school system. This is the kind of, I believe, innovative thinking, innovative leadership we need across our primary education system in America. A great business leader running the nation's largest public school system makes, for me, a lot of sense. Kathy, as you may know, served also very proudly, and we were very proud to have her serve on our board for 20 years before leaving 2 weeks ago. She's brilliant, and she also has an unlimited amount of creativity and of energy. She's committed, and she will be a huge asset for the New York children of the New York City and for our nation's future. So let's look for great things that will come out of the New York education system. The third area that needs our national focus is entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship, the same entrepreneurship that made this country the greatest country in the world. I think one of the great untold stories is just how much mutual dependency exists between large and small businesses today. Our Coca-Cola system is a massive generator of small business development. Each year, we invest $10 billion in our supply chain here in the United States. 10 billion. We call that the multiplier effect. Generally, for each job that we create directly, there are 10 jobs created indirectly. There has been numerous studies made by numerous institutions in the world that average out about 10 jobs in our multiplier as the multiplier for the Coca-Cola system. Advertising, packaging, trucks, deliveries, production equipment, all of that. We feel that we have a deep responsibility to both promote as well as protect the interests of entrepreneurs and small businesses, which are today the most trusted, actually, institutions in the United States today, small business. If we together create the right climate, investment, entrepreneurship, and competitiveness, there is no limit to how far we can advance, I believe, in the coming decade. In the coming years, our national focus needs to be more on entrepreneurship and growth and less on taxation, less on regulation that actually, in our opinion, threatens incentive, threatens investment, threatens growth, and threatens jobs. The fourth and final area that I believe desperately needs our national focus is international trade. Today, global American-based companies like our own directly employ 22 million workers here in the United States combined. Large, international, American-based American companies. And they support an additional 41 million American jobs through their supply chains. That's nearly 1 in 3 jobs in America. Here's what our global success allows us to do at Coca-Cola. Just one example. In just the last 5 years, we have invested nearly $20 billion in capital and acquisitions right here in the United States. When the calendar this year reaches 31 December, we will have invested $3.2 billion in one of the most economically difficult periods in the United States, in 2010. And far from shipping jobs overseas, we're creating real and we're creating tangible benefits for Main Street. In fact, I saw this happen recently, personally, when I went down to Florida to visit a citrus plant that we have in Auburndale, Florida, on a street called Main Street. It is on Main Street. I was down there to help inaugurate a new facility, a $115 million new investment, expansion. In a way, a second factory was built next to the existing one of our operations, and to meet our local suppliers, all the different juice, orange, citrus producers, growers around Florida, who provide us with citrus for our growing global juice business. In fact, 1/3, almost 40% of the entire Florida orange juice crop is now processed at that Auburndale facility that we operate. And here's something that you may all find interesting. The capital improvements that we made to an expansion that we made, the $150 million investment that we made at the Auburndale facility, is a direct result, direct one-to-one regression result of the intense demand we're seeing for our juice beverages in Asia and China. In fact, about 80% of the orange pulp produced at that Auburndale facility is going to be exported this year to China. That's right. Our business in China, our growing business in China, is creating jobs and economic stimulus right here in the United States. And if you look at what's going on in Auburndale, you'll see that our new investments will create just directly that increase in China for pulp demand is going to, for orange juice demand that we need the pulp for, is going to create hundreds of jobs and will have an additional $60 million positive impact in that small town. So for all the talk that we are hearing about China's rise, China's threatening, taking jobs away from America, the reality, as my friend Fareed Zakaria has noted so well in many recent programs that he has, that China's rise and the rest of the world's rise are actually good for America, not bad for America, and ultimately good for American job growth. So having said all this, I hope you can see that our bullishness on America is not some form of blind optimism. There are trends, there are great dynamics here that are real, that are tangible, and have long-term positive implications. At Coca-Cola, all of us believe that this incredible, all of us believe in this incredible country and her future. And as George Allen once told the Redskin faithful, the future is now. In fact, we're just a few weeks away from entering our 125th year of consistent renovation and consistent reinvention. We're also just a few weeks away from entering America's 235th year of reinvention. So we look very much, all of us at Coca-Cola, all 700,000 of us at Coca-Cola, for this journey together, and we're immensely proud to be a part and part of the fabric of this wonderful nation and our wonderful world. Thank you so much for listening to me. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you so much for your time today, Mr. Kent. And we have no shortage of well-written and usually legible questions from the audience, and so we'll be asking as many as we can. First question, you made reference to your company's profitability and revenue growth in recent quarters, which has been in contrast to other areas of the economy. Over the last 2 quarters, Coca-Cola's revenue has grown by 4% and 5% profit margins. What do you think explains your company's ability to grow during a recession? What are you doing right?
Well, I think our business was built for times like these. When they ask me, what do you do? I say, we sell moments of pleasure billions of times every day at cents at a time. And therefore, we have a wonderful, resilient model, and we grow in good times and we grow in bad times. We have obviously not wasted this crisis. We made absolutely sure that we were able to continue to invest in our brands. That's one of the key things that we made sure we did. In fact, in many cases, we increased the investment in our brands by cutting other unnecessary costs. We redeployed investments into our brands, and that, as a result of that, we have also gained share, not just here in the United States, but across the world over the last 2 years. So we have a great model. We have great dedicated partners who believe in our business. And there's 2 ways that I measure the health of our business, simple ways. The appetite of our bottlers for more investment and the appetite of our bottlers for more territory. And both of them are very high. So that's a good litmus test for me in a period when the world has gone through pretty significant macroeconomic turmoil.
You recently said that we need to create conditions for private sector investment and innovation to thrive. Are the U.S. government's policies currently constituted adequate to create the job growth needed to rejuvenate consumer spending?
I think there's always room for more. One of the things that's happened in the last year in the United States, last 15, 18 months in the United States, is deleveraging. Corporate deleveraging, small business, medium-sized business, large business, personal deleveraging, and that is not very healthy, deleveraging, for creating more jobs. At the same time, we have an environment in this country where the cost of money is almost zero, which hasn't been like that for a while. So then you ask yourself, well, what needs to happen? I think one of the things that should happen is that the only entity in this environment that could borrow is still the government, borrow and incentivize innovation, entrepreneurship, and investment. Give the right kind of investments to generate innovation, generate more environmentally friendly energy, reward projects in the right way, and that, I believe, is something that we think that there is room to improve on.
You mentioned in your address that reducing regulation is critical to encouraging U.S. entrepreneurship. Yet the recent global financial crisis was, at least in some part, attributable to a lack of regulatory oversight in the financial industry. How can the U.S. strike a balance between too much regulation of business and too little?
Well, it is a very important, it is a balance. But all my experience has always been, and I've operated in the Soviet Union, I've seen all of that era, and I've seen it unravel. Certainly, too much regulation absolutely does hinder growth, hinder speed, hinder flexibility, hinder jobs. If that was not the case, I can assure you that the Chinese system would not have evolved into what it is today, which is a very fast-moving, flexible, free enterprise system.
Drawing on your experience in the Soviet Union, PepsiCo just announced a $3.8 billion investment in Russia. What's yours and Coca-Cola's reaction, and how could this change Coca-Cola's strategy there?
I think that we all saw that today. I don't comment on investments of our competitors. All I can say is that we continue to invest in Russia. We have invested, in fact, just a few months ago in another business, a juice business in Russia called Nidan. I think, all I can tell you is that our Russian business is a very sound business that is growing at double digits and will continue to develop into a wonderful, large business that we are very proud of. So we believe in the future of Russia, and we continue to invest in Russia, and we continue to grow in Russia. We, as with all other countries around the world, our model depends on a system that employs locally, produces locally, distributes locally, and is owned in many instances by local partners, which is what's made the Coca-Cola system what it is today, a successful global business that is so well connected to the local fabric, local communities, wherever it operates.
Back to the U.S., what is your assessment of how President Obama has interacted with the business community overall, and how have his policies impacted Coca-Cola?
I think that all administrations have a great bearing on business, because at the end of the day, government does not employ its businesses, small, large, medium, that employ people, that create jobs. And the more that there can be an environment that people can see better the future, the more there will be investment in this country. And I believe that there is room for improvement there. Investments are down at the moment by small, medium, and large enterprises. I wish all companies could invest like we have invested in the last 2.5 years in the United States. And I think that we need to certainly have more progressive policies, progressive tax policies, and at the end of the day also one thing, another important element I think is that a country's competitiveness is commensurate with the health and competitiveness of its businesses. And there has to be the right policies so that U.S. companies like Coca-Cola, all U.S. companies, can compete effectively with their European counterparts, with their Chinese counterparts, with their Australian counterparts, with their Japanese counterparts around the world. And today, there is room for improvement in that area. If we today invest in Korea, at the end of a year, make money in Korea, we pay 27% tax. If Nestle invests in Korea, makes money, they pay 27% tax. For Nestle, that's the end of it. They can do whatever they want with that. With us, based on the current regulation, if we bring that money onshore here to the United States, we have to pay an additional 9% income tax. Why do we have to swim with one hand tied behind our backs? American companies need to be competitive for the health of America, for the health of this nation.
In expansion in emerging markets, one of the big issues you'll deal with is intellectual property, and that's one of the areas of leading disputes between the U.S. and China. Two-part question. First, what would you recommend the U.S. do to improve IPR protection in China that it's not already doing? And then, in general, what are some of the challenges of brand protection in parts of the world where intellectual property, copyright law may not be as developed as the U.S.?
Well, there are always going to be parts of the world where policies, laws, regulations, institutions are not as developed as the United States. We operate in 206 markets, and when we say we operate, we don't load containers in Jersey and export them and never see them again. We operate businesses, production, we operate factories, we operate logistics, we operate trucks. We serve our 20 million customers every week, call on 20 million outlets every week. And I think as far as IPR is concerned, we have to make it at the top of the agenda. I led a U.S.-China Business Council delegation to China 30 days ago. We met with the Vice President of China, Xi Jinping. We met with many ministers, and every time we made sure it was at the top of the agenda. There has to be focus, there has to be pressure, and there has to be quid pro quo. The Chinese want us to liberalize. There are currently about 2,000 plus items, goods, that the United States companies cannot export into China. They're on this export control list. China wants us to liberalize that list. There are many other things that China wants from us. There are things that we want from China. And it's a give and take. But we have to make sure that it's on the agenda. We saw great willingness on the part of Chinese leadership to want to play in both improve government procurement lists where there's been an issue, improve indigenous innovation, issues around indigenous innovation, issues around IPR protection. And I think every time you meet, you have to keep moving it a little bit forward. This is a very complicated relationship. It is the most important bilateral relationship in the world. It will stay the most important bilateral relationship in the world, and we have to just keep moving it forward. We just have to ensure it doesn't go back. We have to keep improving and moving. It's not easy, it's complicated, but it can happen. And we believe that we also, as the U.S.-China Business Council, play an important role in lending businesses voice to this important debate and dialogue.
Coca-Cola is known as one of the most multicultural products being used all over the world. It's drunk by people regardless of the consumer's background, ethnicity, religion, income level. How do you see global cultural tensions affect the company, and how do those cultural differences play out as you manage Coca-Cola?
Here's how I say talk about that subject with some examples. When From the Clinton era, where brand America metrics were very high, double-digit approval in the 60s, 70s across the world, in fact, and to up until 2 years ago, metrics for brand America went all the way to single digits. Our business did not suffer because of what I just said a little while ago, because we are so multi-local. We produce locally, we have local partners, we distribute locally, we invest locally, we pay taxes locally, we serve our customers locally. We're part of the fabric of every community. And in the last 5 years, 6 years, we've been very successful at making absolutely sure that we can play a meaningful role in helping to create sustainable communities, with one belief, because we believe that if we help create sustainable communities, then we can have a sustainable business. If we help education, if we help bring water to African villages, if we help working with the Gates Foundation to create better farmers in Uganda and Kenya, it's not because it reads good in our corporate social responsibility report. It's because it's good for our business. When we say we will become water neutral, it has a positive impact on the communities. How? And our business. We will become water neutral by 2020 by reducing the amount of water in those 1,000 plus factories, by recycling the water before we give it back to municipalities. And the two is not enough, because it doesn't get us to water neutrality by 2020. The third one is water replenishment projects. It's 3 R's: reduce, recycle, replenish. The third one is that we capture the rainwater and we give it back to water-stressed villages. The interesting thing is how things are connected. In most African villages, women carry water on their heads miles to the villages, clean water. When we bring the water to the African villages across many countries, 18 different countries in Africa, the women become emancipated. That's when our women entrepreneurship program comes in. The micro distribution centers, we have 2,800 of those in Africa that employ 22,000 people. Half of them are women entrepreneurs. That's how the world is connected, and that's how Coca-Cola is part of the fabric of all societies. That's why when brand America metrics went to single digits, our business kept on flourishing.
At the same time that Coca-Cola is a global company, there are certainly some iconic associations with Coca-Cola as well, one of that being Coca-Cola's headquarters presence in the city of Atlanta, which boasts a Coca-Cola museum. Certainly, Pepsi products are not as consumed as frequently in Atlanta as some other cities, as the surveys will show. When you look at some of the policy alternatives that you're talking about in terms of U.S.-based businesses being competitive, could you see a possibility of any policy regulatory environment evolving in the U.S. that would force Coca-Cola to reconsider moving its headquarters to some place, being that it is a global brand?
We've been very proud to be a part of Atlanta for 124 years, next year 125 years, and we will continue to be a very, very proud supporter of the local communities in Georgia and in Atlanta, and we're very proud of that. And I believe that certainly not for Coca-Cola, but for the benefit and for the health of this nation, there will be better policies that promote more entrepreneurship, more healthier U.S. Corporate competitiveness, and also more investment and job creation in the United States.
Several questions about concepts bandied about soft drink taxes. Are they part of a solution to some states' fiscal woes? What makes them a bad idea, assuming you think they're a bad idea?
Well, I've been quoted by saying very openly that I think they're a bad idea. There's no creativity. It's a very poor idea. with no merit, because taxes have never created jobs. The number one priority, number two, and number three right now in the United States is job creation. And by taxing discriminately a certain product category does not do any justice to creating the impact that the original tax was intended for. Let me now reference the issue around obesity too. It's a very complex issue. It's not a single dimensional issue. It's a multi-dimensional issue. It is an issue. We are not the problem, but we are very happy to be part of the solution. And we are working for ensuring that we can be part of the solution. Obesity is part of a balance. It is calories in and calories out. When you look at the statistics and you see that in the United States adults have gone from 3,000 to 4,000 steps to under 3,000 steps when they were taking 5,000 steps a day, and when you see the portions, when you see the lack of clarity on packages, certainly there is an issue. That's why we're leading by being much more transparent on packaging, by being ensuring that we give choice, we put information with clarity on our packages. We have smaller packages on offer, what we call portion sizes, and we have over 3,000 products. 800 of those are calorie-free, and we're leading that change. And not only that, but also healthy, active lifestyle. Let's get America moving again. That's why we're supporting the First Lady's initiative. That's why we will have, by 2015, in every single one of the 206 countries that we are operating in, we will have active lifestyle investments and activities and awareness. It is all about balance. Balance, and there are no bad products. There are bad habits.
Our second to last question comes from an audience member who asks, how does Coca-Cola develop new products? I'd like to see Coke-flavored sugar-free chewing gum. Please have that idea.
Everything was going right until you said chewing gum, because we're a beverage business. You will not see us go away from being a beverage business, but I invite all of you to create your own products outside. You can have a couple of hundred permutations, and you can create your own beverage with that wonderful innovation outside.
We're almost out of time, and we thank you for your time today. Before our final question, we have a couple important matters to take care of. The first one is to remind our members and guests of future speakers. This is the last so far scheduled National Press Club Luncheon of 2010, but we'll be picking up again on January 12, 2011 with Gail McGovern of the American Red Cross, who will discuss 1 year after the Haiti earthquake, progress and challenges. Our second item is to present our guest with, this is the moment we've all been waiting for, the traditional, coveted National Press Club mug.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Let me just immediately use it.
Certainly, certainly. So for our final question, one of the parts of Coca-Cola lore is, of course, the secret formula. What makes Coca-Cola gives it its Coca-Cola-ness that no one really knows what it is or necessarily what it's stored or what it's doing. We live in a world of transparency and information that gets out. Sometimes information that one doesn't necessarily want to get out. And the final question is, how do you ensure that you can protect the secret Coca-Cola formula from WikiLeaks?
I guess that we have to have better systems than the U.S. State Department. I just said recently at a university I was speaking to on this past Saturday, I got the same question from a student, and I said, look, there's a few people, obviously, that know the formula. It's kept in a vault in Atlanta, And they said, well, have you ever seen it? I said, if I had, I wouldn't even know what it is. It's on a piece of paper, but I'm not an engineer or a food scientist, and I wouldn't know what those letters meant.
Thank you again for coming today. Thank you. And thank you also to the National Press Club staff, including its Library and Broadcast Operations Center, for organizing today's event. For more information about joining the National Press Club and on how to acquire a copy of today's program, please visit our website at www.press.org. Thank you. This meeting of the National Press Club is adjourned. Thank you. All right. Constitution. He's a Washington correspondent. Joel Whitaker of Kane's Beverage News Daily. He's the chairman of the National Press Club's membership committee. Susan Neely, CEO of the American Beverage Association and a guest of the speaker. Andrew Schneider, associate editor for Kiplinger and the chair of the National Press Club Speakers Committee. Skipping over our speaker for the moment, Angela Greiling-Keene, the Speakers Committee member who organized the luncheon and a reporter at Bloomberg News. Donald McHenry, Georgetown University professor, Coca-Cola board member, and a guest of the speaker. Carol Wolf, reporter, Bloomberg News. And AP radio anchor Ed Donahue. In politics, name recognition is half the battle. In retail, having a household name for a well-established brand is a blessing, but also a curse when growing a mature market. A pause in growth is not refreshing to shareholders. But that challenge of furthering growth is one Coca-Cola chairman and CEO Muhtar Kent says he is ready to meet. Mr. Kent leads the world's biggest soft drink maker, which is working to grow in the U.S. and in emerging markets such as China, where it is busy investing $2 billion and where it opened its 41st bottling plant in October. Coke is also growing in Africa, where per capita Coca-Cola consumption lags more developed regions. The company isn't exactly entering a new market, though. It's been in Africa since 1929 and already is the continent's largest employer. Today, he's here to talk about how business and government in North America can together rekindle economic growth and innovation. The U.S. still struggles with high unemployment amid an economic downturn, and the U.S. soda, I call it pop, market, has declined for 5 consecutive years as schools and the White House have focused on combating obesity, especially in children. Mr. Kent has gained fame for his all-hour schedule and meetings with world leaders during his travels. He joined Coca-Cola in 1978 and has worked for the company or its bottlers ever since, becoming CEO in 2008. This week, he's been attending UN-led talks on setting rules to limit global warming. Mr. Kent says he favors a series of international accords rather than an international treaty. So please welcome to the National Press Club, Coca-Cola Chairman and CEO Muhtar Kent.
Thank you, Alan, and good afternoon, everyone. What a great privilege it is to be in our nation's capital today to address the National Press Club. But I can't help but notice that a lot of folks here are enjoying our beverages at lunch today, and so just let me begin by thanking you for your business. And President Obama, if you're listening by chance on public radio or watching live on C-SPAN, I know from press reports that many of the non-alcoholic beverages of choice in the White House are produced by us. That's a policy position I certainly endorse and I appreciate. I've been looking forward to this engagement at the Press Club for some time. As someone who has spent his vast majority of career traveling to all sorts of countries, markets around the world for Coca-Cola, I have seen firsthand the correlation between the strength of a nation and the strength of its press. That's no more so true than right here in America. In fact, one can say that I owe my career to a strong American press. About 32 years ago, I was reading a newspaper in New York when I stumbled upon a classified ad for an entry-level marketing position with the Coca-Cola Company. It looked intriguing. I responded, sent them my resume. I'm glad I did. When I first went to Atlanta to start work for Coca-Cola in '78, the mood in America was, I can certainly remember, was pretty somber. A lot of anxious people at that time. Fuel prices were spiking. Interest rates were pretty much at all-time highs. A recession was draining the confidence of the country at that time. There was widespread fear that I could recall that the U.S. was losing its global political and economic leadership at that time. Many people feared that a surging Japan would take away all the jobs here in the United States, in American industry, in the U.S. economy. Even greater numbers of people actually
Good afternoon, and welcome to the National Press Club. My name is Alan Bierga. I'm a reporter for Bloomberg News and president of the National Press Club. We're the world's leading professional organization for journalists and are committed to our profession's future through our programming and by fostering a free press worldwide. For more information about the National Press Club, please visit our website at www.press.org. To donate to our programs, please visit www.press.org/library. On behalf of our members worldwide, I'd like to welcome our speaker and our attendees at today's event, which includes guests of our speaker as well as working journalists. I'd also like to welcome our C-SPAN and public radio audiences. After the speech concludes, I will ask as many audience questions as time permits. I'd now like to introduce our head table guests. From your right, Michelle Hirsch, reporter for the Fiscal Times. Sitki Ozkan, policy director of the Rumi Forum. Marilyn G. Wax, senior business editor for National Public Radio. She did her master's thesis on Coca-Cola. Bob Keefe of the Atlanta Journal